Well, seeing as it's 1 o'clock, I guess I will install myself as the temporary chairperson of this committee to call us to order. And so call to order the first meeting of the Home Rule Charter Committee for Ramsey County. Has everyone had a chance to look at the agenda for this meeting? And, are there any changes that anyone would like to make to the agenda? Because if not, one thing that I would like to add is we're required by Century Code to designate how much everyone that is a member of this board will be reimbursed for their services. And so I would add, after the selection of a chairperson and co-chairperson, that we add a discussion on reimbursements for that so that we can meet that Century Code requirement. Do we have a motion to add that?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carried. Are there any other changes to the agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carried. We can start with the introduction of members. My name is Lucas Wakefield. I'm Ramsey County, I'm a commissioner and happy to be here on this board. I'm very excited to get the chance to work with you all, and I think that we're going to do great things. So we can go to Paula, I guess.
Paula Vista, Executive Director of the Devil's Lake Chamber.
Susie Kenner, I'm the Director of Devil's Lake Tourism for the Chamber.
Anthony Herman, my day job is a civil engineer.
Rodney Brown, retired farmer.
Candy Christopherson, Auditor.
Carrie Gotten, State's Attorney.
And Adam?
Yeah, Adam Lightfon. I look like a phone right now. I apologize again for not being able to be there in person. Stuff kind of fell apart this morning out here, and we got into corn, and yeah, it's supposed to snow tomorrow, so we got to keep rolling. So, but yes, I'm your Ramsey County Commissioner as well.
Okay. Great. Well, with introductions concluded, we'll move on to the next item of business, which is the selection of officers. And we will start with the selection of a chairperson. Do we have any nominations for someone to fill the role of chairperson?
I'll nominate Lucas Wakefield.
Okay, we have a nomination to select Lucas Wakefield as chairperson. Are there any other nominees? Hearing none, is there a second to nominate Lucas Wakefield as the chairperson? Okay, there is a motion and a second to nominate Lucas Wakefield as chairperson of the Ramsey County Home Rule Charter Committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carried. We'll move on to the selection of a co-chairperson for the Ramsey County Home Rule Charter Commission or Committee. Excuse me. Are there any nominees for that role? Don't everybody volunteer.
I'll nominate Adam Lightfon.
Okay, there's been a nomination to select Adam Lightfon as the co-chairperson of the Ramsey County Home Rule Charter Commission. Are there any other nominees for that position? Hearing none, is there a second to select Adam Lightfon as the co-chairperson of the Ramsey County Home Rule Charter Committee?
Seconded.
Okay, we've got a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carried. It's not listed on the agenda, but the other role that I think we need to select someone for would be to select someone to be the recorder of the minutes. And I would nominate Candy Christopherson, seeing as she's already over there doing it. Are there any other nominees for that role?
I'll second.
All All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carried.
And if I decline?
It's too late, you can't take it back. Okay, so we'll move on to the third item of business, which is a discussion on the home rule charter. And I think that at this point, it would make sense to read out the relevant portions of the North Dakota Century Code that pertain to what our obligations are as a committee, and I'll be happy to read those for you. And then after that, we can open it up to a discussion about what we're going to attempt to do here and what we want to see out of this. Okay, so this is from North Dakota Century Code, and I'm not sure if this is Chapter 11, Section 9, 1 through 2. Charter Commission membership, preparation and submission of the charter, compensation and expenses and publication. So, Century Code reads, within 60 days after proceedings have been initiated for a home rule charter, the Board of County Commissioners shall appoint a charter commission comprised of at least 5 members to draft the charter, unless a petition proposing a charter pursuant to Section 11.9.101 prescribes the composition of the commission or the manner by which the composition of the commission is to be determined. The board shall designate one of the charter commission members as chairman of the charter commission. The board shall set the compensation and expenses of the charter commission members. Actual expenses incurred by the charter commission members may be reimbursed at the official reimbursement rates of the appointing authority. The board, from its general funds, may furnish the charter commission with office space, clerical help, supplies, and legal and other assistance. The charter commission shall hold at least one public hearing on the proposed charter and may use other suitable means to disseminate information, receive suggestions and comments, and encourage public discussion of the proposed charter. The commission shall prepare and submit the charter to the Board of County Commissioners within 1 year after their appointment, unless the board allows additional time for the submission of the charter. The charter must contain a list of county offices to be elected and elected offices that will be eliminated or combined if the charter is adopted. The Board of County Commissioners shall publish the proposed charter once in the official newspaper of the county. So, having read all of that, that is in my view, and we thankfully have our state's attorney here to make sure that I'm right, the relevant information about what our role and responsibility is here. And so with that, I would open it up to anyone who would like to give some initial thoughts on what we'd like to see out of this committee going forward.
I guess the first thing that I'd like to hear is kind of what is your vision for it at this point? Because as I understood it, you kind of brought it up to the commission and were the spearhead of it, correct?
I think that would be a reasonable assessment of the order of events, yes.
So, I would like to hear your version of your vision of why now and what you'd like to see it turn into.
Sure. So, the first thing that attracted me to the concept of home rule was actually the discussion of the county paying a portion of the road upkeep and maintenance for a road that is not a county road. And that it was not clear to me that there was a direct relationship between the taxable valuation of land in the county and the rationale for maintaining this road, which was not a county road. And although in the end I was in favor of doing so because I felt that it was a special case, I felt that the connection between the revenues that were being generated and that particular expense was tenuous enough that I felt like it was difficult to be able to look everybody in this county in the face and say why we had chosen to do that. And as such, I think that it is beneficial to the county to have multiple levers by which to raise revenue so that we can better connect ends and means. and make sure that anytime that we're funding something, that we're doing it using a mechanism that is correlated more appropriately to the thing that we're funding, or at least have the option to do that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I felt that there might be some efficiencies that we could find with respect to the governance of this county through the adoption of a home rule charter. Now, I think that it's too soon in this process to say what those efficiencies might be or where we might find them, but that I think it's always worthwhile to take time to look and to assess what the options are. And so for those reasons, I felt like it was valuable for us to have a discussion about this. And as far as your question as to why now, I think it's been now about a decade since this was seriously discussed, and even a little bit longer than that. And as Devil's Lake continues to grow in importance as a hub for tourism and for services for surrounding counties, I think it becomes more and more vital that we look at Ramsey County as a hub county, and that we're going to be expected to be responsible for things that, again, are not directly related to the taxable valuation of the land in this county. And so a lot of the larger counties in the state have home rule, and I think that it would be appropriate for Ramsey County to look. So I guess that would be the summation of my answer to that question.
Thank you.
Are there any other thoughts about the home rule committee or what we'd like to see out of something like this?
Can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you.
I would expand upon Lucas's comments and say, I also like the idea, and if you read different home rules from around the state and the different counties that have them, I like the idea of also having a referral process in the home rule charter, and many of them do, where if it's, no different than like a referral or initiated measure at the state level, where if somebody feels that county government is not answering their needs, it allows an avenue for the citizens of the county to essentially, try to check the authority and or, get something passed or something of that nature through the home rule, which is kind of an interesting, how many times have we seen in the state of North Dakota where the citizens of the state decide the legislature isn't moving fast enough or isn't doing something, it's just more ability for the citizens to be active in the government, and I think that's a positive portion of it too, in addition to what Lucas was expanding upon there, the ability to raise revenue to pay for things that we can't justifiably say should be paid for by property tax anymore. The way that things have been structured in the past in North Dakota to pay for things at the county level no longer works the way it was meant to work necessarily when it was structured that way, way back when. And there's a lot of things that the county has to cover now that just don't make sense to have to pay for through property tax.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have any other thoughts?
You said a decade ago when this had come before the commission, correct?
Well, it's never come before the county commission with respect to home rule charter actually coming before the commission.
Right.
It's been stopped prior to that. But the last time that a committee was assembled, and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 2004, is that right?
I believe so, yeah. And then there was once in the 90s, I think, before that, and then once in the 80s. So it's been looked at basically once about every 10 or 12 years for the last 30 or so.
Yeah, since it's been, instituted as an actionable item, I think, in the Century Code.
Yeah, it was in the mid-80s when the option was first given, I believe.
The last meeting was February 15th of 2005.
Okay, so there you go.
last meeting of.
Of the prior home rule committee for Ramsey
Yeah.
County.
And nothing was ever proposed before county commission, brought before county commission.
Correct.
Why was the committee dissolved?
Well, the committee, Century Code requires the home rule charter committees to present a working draft of a charter to the county commission within 1 year of it being assembled.
Okay.
So at which point, if a document has not been created by that point, my guess would be, and Carrie would know this better than I would, that you would have to recreate a home rule charter committee.
You have to have it presented within a year unless the commission gives you a longer period of time. So
Which this commission did not. The Ramsey County Commission did not give this committee longer than that to create a document. But I think, so basically that would be why it is that it timed out.
So
Was it timed out, or was it under when they give the plan to the county commission, they didn't approve of it?
So I think that in the 1990 version of the committee, in 1992, a document was presented to the commission and the commission chose not to bring it to a vote of the people. My understanding is that in the 2005, there was no document that was presented in the end to the commission and that the committee simply dissolved by timing out.
do we have access to those documents?
One of them you should have right now.
Is this the
This one here.
2005 one? You know?
Home rule chart,
Yeah, well,
county, is that what you
Come
got?
out of this book.
Okay.
So this was the one from 2005.
Probably the 90s.
Oh.
Yeah, it may have
Nothing
just
would have
been,
been
yeah,
presented.
it may have just been in the book
Okay.
for them, but I believe that this was the 1990s
Okay.
home rule charter that was actually presented to the county commission.
Oh, wait, no, I typed it through December 2005. That would make sense.
So what you're saying is that as of this date, because we formed effective today?
No,
Okay,
we were formed effective, not the last meeting of the county commission, but the meeting before that, right?
No, it would have just been our last meeting because
What,
that
was it the last county commission meeting that we
because that was
finished
the
this
final,
election?
that was the
Okay.
final date.
So, so the effective date of this, for the record, which we should probably have on the record, was October,
17th, third Tuesday.
yes, October 17th. So according to Century Code, we have
And you did that, the first meeting in October.
so it was 2 meetings ago. Because that's what I thought, was that it was 2 meetings ago.
Yeah, because the last
It was
meeting
the
was
first
only
meeting,
like a
it was
half
first
an
meeting
hour
in
long.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
so that is what I
Oh,
thought.
yeah.
So, for the record, this body was effective the date of the 3rd of October of this year. So, we have to have a working document presented to the commission, should we choose to present one, by October 3rd of 2018.
If I could add something, basically, off of all the research I've done on the different home rules that have been presented to be voted upon at any point in time, most of the time it takes right around 6 months or so, 6 to 7 meetings probably to kind of hash everything out and get a working document together and then get it in front of the commission at that point. And that's something I suppose as a committee, as we do our work and move forward, we'll determine, one, is this something the county wants and or needs? Are we going to forward the document to the commission as a whole? And then, when would be the best timing to put it on the ballot? Basically our timing would be whenever we get our work done, and the commission would have to make that determination, I suppose, but it would kind of be determined upon how quickly we do our work as the home rule committee, I would suppose.
Yeah, and I think, when given it some initial thought, and like I said, and like Adam just said, this may take, we don't know. We don't know how long it'll take, because it'll take as long as we choose it to take. But I think that it would make sense, at least in my mind, to spend the first couple of meetings and the time in between the first couple of meetings going over the documentation of the work that was done prior.
Yeah.
So that everyone on this committee can understand what was done and why it was done previously. At which point I think it would make sense to spend a meeting or two thereafter and the intervening time familiarizing ourselves with what has been done across the state in other home rule charters, and to understand what works and what might work here. At which point the rest of the time between now and the point where we would need to present a working document, I think it would make a lot of sense to spend that time drafting what our document that we intend to present would look like.
Do we have access to any of the minutes from those previous?
Yes, there's a big book.
This book right
Sweet.
here.
And it might make sense for us to make copies of that if possible, which I know it's a lot of stuff, but.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in that book too. You can kind of, see what the discussion was previously and the ideas that came forward. And I mean, what it comes down to is if you go read the previous home rule charter that was brought before the commission in the 90s, or any of them that are passed around the state, they generally all have the same, structure. I mean, they're all very, very similar. It's just here and there, a little bit of a change, or how limited or how comprehensive do you want to, as a committee, do we want to make the home rule charter that we forward to the commission? There's like I was reading about Burley and Morton last night, and theirs are very limited. They're basically just structured, and they were passed at the time so they could get a half-cent sales tax to get their jail done. And that's basically the only reason they passed the home rule charter. So they're very limited, whereas somebody like Cass County has far more, comprehensive feel to it, where the commission has far more powers to be able to kind of do different things, but it's still limited to the point where if they want to do any additional taxation other than property taxes, it has to go before the people at that point. They can't just decide to add a tax, obviously. So there's different levels that you can kind of build into it.
I think that book probably holds a lot of really good information, correct?
Yes.
Something that Susie kind of mentioned to me, we might have access to be able to make a copy of that at our office. Would you be opposed if we took that and made 8 copies for each of the members of the
Well, I
committee?
mean, we can do it here too.
Or would you have the time? Because we have a staff person that would have the time to do that, Candy, if you don't.
There's just some repetitious, different things, like there's old century codes where now I just printed out the newest right off the website.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll just have to,
But you just passed out this whole rule.
That's current.
that is
That's-
the current century code, where in here
Why would we
it
have to
goes
go
back
back?
to.
If this is the current one, why would we have to go
Right,
back?
and so that's what she's mentioning, is that
Yeah.
perhaps we don't need to print that off for everyone.
I can't see that if it's all in here, why would we have to
For
go back?
this board's purposes, we wouldn't have to go back.
We were
No,
just
no.
thinking, some of the notes of what they were proposing maybe before.
Because there's different county home rule charters in here that,
It's samples, it's sample
Yeah.
formats, sample, more expensive types of powers created versus not, I imagine. I think the historical notes, kind of lessons learned minutes in there would be.
That's kind of my
Beneficial.
primary look, is to see what roadblocks they ran into
Right.
and what things we need to overcome to actually get this done this time.
Right.
because see, some of this dates back to 2000
Yeah.
with different counties that they acquired copies of this. Well, if they've made any kind of changes to that, it wouldn't be in here. Yeah, I might have to just pick apart.
Do they have other things in there besides century code, like any AG opinions or anything like that?
I haven't seen anything like that. See, it's like Cass County, Richland County, Walsh County. I know Walsh County just did some changes again. So,
Yeah, and the Cass County home rule that's in that book won't be up to date either because they made amendments in 2010 as well as 2016 when they did their asset sale tax for the flood diversion.
yeah. And then there was just an email too about different people retiring in Cass County that now that those positions are no longer going to be elected, they're going to be appointed.
Which
Isn't
that's,
that something that goes along with the home rule?
that's within our scope of powers to determine.
Okay.
So we have the ability as a committee to put together a document that might merge offices that exist in this county courthouse. It doesn't say in Century Code, as far as I'm aware, that we can add offices. I assume that that's a possibility because I'm fairly certain that the county has the authority to do that now. And that currently elected officials may have that status changed. And that could include, to my understanding, the changing of the effective number of commissioners for the county. So it's not just the people who work daily in the building. It may actually, it could potentially have an effect on the commission itself. So that's just something to be aware of. We're really, at the end of the day, looking at the ability to draft what's essentially a constitution for the county.
Some of these are dated 1970. What's the latest one? 76. Oh, that's 2000. Like the city of Devil's Lake is in here, but theirs is dated 1977. So I might just, I think I'm just gonna have to pick apart the book. Yeah.
Yep.
Because here's the, let's see. This is century code, this is 85. So these wouldn't even pertain. That's 91. Yeah. I might just have to sit down and go page by page of what needs to be copied, yeah.
What's of historic value and what is.
Yeah, because then there's this book that I found that I haven't really, this goes back to, let's fall apart. See, there's a lot of century code stuff in here, but that's all changed. Just a copy of a motion from 91 when they appointed that board. And then it has copies of Richland, Walsh, which are, these might be even older.
I think those are the two oldest home rule charters in the state,
Yeah.
Richland and Walsh.
That one's 86.
I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Which
88.
I think sort of, just as an aside, I think speaks to the value of what we have the opportunity to do here, which is to say that while, to my knowledge, 13 home rule charters have been enacted in this state, none have ever been repealed.
Yep.
So no county has ever gone back to the standard method of doing business that has adopted a home rule charter.
Might have to pick this one apart too.
Is there any other thoughts or discussion on just general topics with respect to a home rule charter and what it means to be on this committee? If there are none, I would like to move along to, again, what we're required to do with respect to the century code, which is set our compensation schedule. And it's at this point that, I'd like to explain to everyone that can inform me that while the Ramsey County Commission created a budget for this committee for the next fiscal year, there are no dollars allocated to this committee for this fiscal year. Is that correct? Can you say that correctly?
I have something here, let me find it again.
No cookies for our meeting.
I'm going back in time here.
Not until January.
It's basically not until we start drafting.
Did see a motion in here about, where's my calculator?
But this committee was budgeted for fiscal year 2018, $5,000 by the Ramsey County Commission to conduct whatever business that we deem essential. So if for some reason we felt like we needed to bring on some kind of a consultant, if we felt we needed designated office space, designated filing space, anything that would form a line item expense, that is the source of funding that this committee has to work with. And that would also include, the ability to reimburse if for some reason we felt the need to go visit other counties, and see how they operate or whatever that may be. That would also involve travel reimbursement. But with respect to commission pay, seeing as we don't have anything allocated for a per meeting reimbursement for everybody who shows up to each meeting, I think it would make sense potentially to just say that there is no reimbursement, but we do need to specify that. So, are there any other thoughts on that? But we will have cookies, I promise, starting on next week.
Just easy. I'm always good with the cookie.
Well then, given that, do we have anyone who would like to make a motion with respect to board member compensation? So that we can have that on the record.
I would move the board member compensation on a per meeting basis of $0.
Okay? And would you be willing to amend that motion to include that the overall compensation is also 0? So that it's not like we get paid out a big check at the end?
I was gonna say a little cookie, but just kidding.
So moved.
Okay? Is there a second to sorry, Ken.
I'm reading.
Is there a second that board member compensation for services rendered to this board and on this board be 0 on a per meeting basis and be in totality also $0? Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carried. I'm glad that we got that out of the way. So now we can check that box that we've designated our salaries as nothing. That's good. So the last item on the agenda would be to select our meeting dates and times going forward. And I think if we very loosely prescribe what it is that we'd like to accomplish over time, obviously we'll refine this as we go along, but that for the next 2 meetings, let's say, we sort of have the intention of going through what has been done in the previous committee, and for the next meetings after that, to go through what the other counties have done that have adopted home rule, and then finally to begin drafting a document. If we try to do that, I think it would make sense to have at least a monthly meeting, because that would give us 11, well, unless we did one in early October, it would actually give us 10 more meetings, right? Because we've already missed. So we'd have one next October. But is there any sense to dates and times that would work for everyone to meet?
Wednesdays do work best for me. Other than that, no.
You have to put into consideration if you're going to do this for the next election year, which is next year, that you're not gonna get stuck meetings in October. Because you're going to have to submit things by a deadline to get it on the ballot come November.
That's right.
Oh,
Yeah, and then on top of that, if this committee's effective date is the third day in October anyway, we probably weren't gonna have any time in October,
no.
regardless.
You know, I mean, it's just something to think about. Okay, I did find the motion that I was scanned over earlier.
Care to share?
It says that a motion was made to approve $1,000 out of the general budget for expenses for the Home Rule Committee charter
Not 5,000.
members that live out of town. That's all it says. Which I'll research it to find if it's like brought to, for the commissioners to approve. You know,
What year was that?
2004.
Okay.
Okay.
$1,000 was approved in 2004 for expenses for out of town.
But in this one we have 5.
No, he was thinking it was 5.
No, that was, no, in this one we do have 5, that was in 2004.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, it was approved. I thought
So
you said I
we,
thought it
for,
was
we
5.
budgeted for 2018, $5,000 for this committee to use. It's just that we don't have any for fiscal year 2017, so until January, we technically don't have a budget.
Okay.
And I don't think technically the home rule can make a motion without it bringing forth to commission to approve. But,
Oh, so like any motion we made here today would have to go to the county commission to approve?
well,
To
I mean,
spend money, you
with
mean?
stuff like that for,
Oh, for
you know,
monetary.
to
Yeah.
take money out of the
Yeah,
budget.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's already been approved for 2018,
So-
but for right now,
Right, okay.
So in other words, if we needed to spend money now, we would have to go
To the commission
first,
first.
right?
Okay.
And, you know, so depending on what it was, if we had something that was, you know, a real pressing concern that we needed to spend money on, I'm sure that we could find some way to make it work, but, so that's sort of the sum of that. Well, hearing no suggestions.
How do you guys feel about the 8th,
Oh.
November 8th for the next meeting? It
November
gives us 2 weeks to do some basic research.
Is that a Wednesday?
Yes, it is.
What time of day?
Let's just stick with noon or 1.
I can't do noon meetings on Wednesdays because of early.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I haven't been early yet.
'Cause it's like $600 a
For
year.
heaven's sakes.
I'm a poor 24-year-old, Paula, do you wanna pay my
You're not
membership
poor
fees?
24, maybe 24.
Maybe you should ask for $600 compensation for home road choice.
Yeah. So,
Could we do a different time on
sure,
Wednesdays?
1 or 2 o'clock work better?
Yeah, Jeff wouldn't make it. Mm,
Yeah.
Well, 1 will cut it close because we're just going down. 2.
2 o'clock? 2 o'clock on Wednesday, November 8th for next
Don't
meeting?
make any difference, I can try and make it.
Adam, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I think Wednesday afternoons actually usually work pretty well. I just gotta get, you know, my corn out of the field.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'll be done by the 8th of November, but they make no guarantees.
Okay, so do you wanna make that in the form of a motion, Anthony?
Yes.
For,
I move that we hold our next meeting November 8th, Wednesday at 2 p.m.
okay, there's a motion to hold the next meeting of the Ramsey County Home Rule Committee for Wednesday, November 8th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Candy, do you have any discussion you'd like to make before we take it to a vote?
Karen will be here.
So Carrie will be unable to
She has a
attend?
jury trial that week.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't know if I will be there, but.
Well, we would still have a quorum then, provided that everyone else can attend.
Yep.
But it's good to be aware of.
Yep.
Okay?
Would it be advisable to set up a backup date?
Or to make it continuum, I mean, have it as Wednesdays at 2 going forward.
Well,
I think that would be a reasonable thing to do.
yeah.
The only reason that I wouldn't want to have a backup date is because these are public.
Oh, that's right.
So whatever we do, once we've set up a regular schedule, it'll make it a lot easier on us if we don't have to constantly be letting the journal and everyone know that we're changing dates and times. So that's why it would be good to be a little bit standard. Okay, so there's a motion and a second for Wednesday, November 8th at 2 p.m. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. The other thing that I think, and I know we're a long ways away from it at this point, but because we need to, probably do some real advertising for this, if we have to have a public hearing, according to Century Code, we should probably have at least a general sense of when we would want to hold that.
Yeah, but we're a long way from that yet.
We are, but I just want to put it on everyone's radar as something to think about, that as we move forward, we're going to need to, at some point, decide when we want to have that hearing as well. And potentially we could have it at a regular meeting time in September or something like that. Okay, does anyone else have any other thoughts, comments, concerns with respect to home rule? If not, I think that one of the other next steps that would make sense would be to try to parse down what the working documents that came out of the previous committees and to get those sent out to everyone. So that in these next 2 weeks, we have the ability to at least familiarize ourselves on an initial level with what has been done previously. And that would be good. So Candy, do you feel comfortable doing that? Would you like help doing that?
No, Nathan will do it.
Okay, we've assigned it to Nathan, so that's good. Okay, is there anything else pressing that anyone would like to discuss?
Oh, does meeting in here work?
I think that's fine.
Yes.
Is that okay? Until we do like public hearing, then we may have to go to one of the meeting rooms
Sure,
or something.
sure. Okay,
Yeah, this works.
well then, hearing no other concerns or comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
We stand adjourned. Thank you everyone so much.
Hey.